And we are live. What's going on, YouTube Live? It's your boy, Billy Rowe. Today is Tuesday. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. If it is Tuesday and you've been rocking with us long enough now, you should know it's time for a first row Intersation. Tonight's topic is self-forgiveness. Ooh, we going in deep, and it's with the crowd fan favorite, Cousin Mo. I call him, y'all can call him Brother Moses, but he calls me Cousin Ro. Cousin Mo, can you say what's up to the people, please?
What's up to the people? Hey, man, y'all better not get used to this afro. It's almost time to go because I live in Arizona now. It's going to be way too hot, but appreciate that while you see it, though.
All right. I see. Got your Sunday's best still on.
And you know it, man.
Looking good.
Hey, you got to mix it up at work. Sometimes you can go with the polo, but sometimes you throw the jacket on top just to let them know, man, we're about excellence in our family, man.
Hey, I got it. I was dressed up earlier, but then I went to the gym. See, I'm trying to get these muscles back that you always be giving me a hard time about. Trying to get them back. So,
yeah, man, you working on your physique like you're putting the steroids right inside your left pec or something. I don't know, man. You got to slow down a little bit. Hey, everybody.
I'm glad everybody could join us tonight. What's going on? Sylvia came in first place tonight. Shout out to Sylvia. And then we got JC and Bruce with a close third. So I appreciate you guys rocking with us tonight. Let's get it. Tonight's topic again, I almost said self-evidence. Wow. Self-forgiveness. I don't know. Ooh, maybe we're going somewhere with that. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But for those who are new, none of you three who I've called out already are new to Intersations. However, but for those who are new to the concept of Intersations, I always like to share what an Intersation is. So Intersation is simply when you take an interview and conversation and you merge the two together, you get Intersation. So in my life, I'm very fortunate to have an abundance, or I'm going to use a different word tonight, a robust amount of friends that come from different backgrounds, friends, family, coworkers, whatever it may be, strangers that want to talk to me on the street. And in our conversations that we have, we typically go beyond that surface level of conversation and move into much more deep and meaningful topics that typically lead with questions or end with questions like, what does that mean to you? Why do you think that way? Where did you get that from? So that is what an Intersation is. Cousin Mo is no stranger to Intersations. I don't even know which one this is because you've done one almost every month since we started back in September. So this is like, and you've done some extra ones. So I don't know what number we're on with you, but it's definitely, I've always appreciated having you on at least once a month to rock with me on an Intersation. Tonight's topic, again, being about self-forgiveness, I'm going to try to make it fun and light, but I think it's an area that we all kind of deal with and many of us struggle with. So I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. I got my pen, I got my paper over here to the right. I got my Cousin Mo straight in front of me. So without further ado, let's get to it. Cousin Mo, you don't get to introduce yourself anymore. If they don't know who you are by now, they need to go and watch a replay. Tell them to go and watch a replay.
Watch a replay already.
So, hey, what's going on, Cousin Brian? Hey, what's going on, Justin? So let's get straight into tonight's topic on self-forgiveness. As with every Intersation, Cousin Mo, I like to start off with understanding, what does the topic of self-forgiveness mean to you?
It means holding myself accountable, holding myself liable, giving myself permission. That's self-forgiveness right there, right? So we can go into a lot of directions with it, but I'm going to just say those three so we can keep it a streamlined Intersation today. Holding myself accountable. I really like that one because it really allows you to explore what expectations you have set for yourself. Oh, my goodness. I just lost the second one. What did I say?
I only got the third one. I got accountable and I got permission.
Holding myself accountable, holding myself. Looks like y'all only getting two tonight until I think about it, because I ain't gonna wreck my brain. I forgive myself already for forgetting my second one. I had it written down on my notes over there. I could probably go grab it, but let's just use the two tonight. The number three, I like it a lot, but we'll do two. From our perspective tonight, we're going to be talking about self-forgiveness from personal accountability and then giving oneself permission.
Okay. I like that. And I'm definitely going to be digging on this permission aspect because I'm the man when it comes to accountability. I hold myself and everybody else accountable. But when it comes to permission, that's the area that I struggle with, giving permission for, which is really, I use the word permission as grace, giving that grace. But I like that. So we're going to get into it. But the for me, when I think about what self-forgiveness is, I think about honestly what it brings to like the surface for me is the struggle that I'm going to say I have. I'm going to stop bringing all y'all into this, but if you're in the live chat and you struggle with self-forgiveness, at least put a 1 in the chat. So I know I'm not the only one, but I struggle with self-forgiveness because I have that level of accountability in my mind that I think sometimes where I feel like I shouldn't be making mistakes, or some of the mistakes that I'm making at this point in life should be easily avoidable for myself. So I've struggled with it I've struggled with past tense. I've struggled with self-forgiveness for a very long time. However, I've gotten a lot better and have grabbed a couple of different tools that I use for my own personal sanity to get into self-forgiveness mode a lot faster than I used to. So I'm really looking forward to look, they done left me hanging in the chat, Cousin Mo. I'm the only one who struggles with self-forgiveness.
Not a 1 in there, not even a
not a 1, a cricket. Yeah, put a cricket in there if y'all since you know. So let's jump into these questions though. So for you said, I'm actually going to start with the 2 things you said from the accountability standpoint. Mm-hmm. How do you see that playing its role in self-forgiveness? Like, walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So initially, we say that there was a mistake. Something was done in error. I did something and maybe somebody else was displeased or dissatisfied. Maybe they were inconvenienced by an action that I took. And self-accountability then is the ability to reflect on one's own expectations and say, was I living up to my standard? What was I really trying to accomplish? And if what I was actually trying to accomplish at the time I felt was worth the risk, it was something measured. I had thought it out and I really tried to, I was geared towards a certain goal, an outcome that I wanted, and I maybe didn't hit that outcome, then you're still good, right? So give yourself that forgiveness and allow yourself to move forward. If it was just something haphazard that you were just doing off the whim, off the cuff, every once in a while you can just say, I was just freelance going about it, shooting my shot, throwing a dart in the dark, throwing, what did my uncle say? Throwing crap on the wall, hoping something sticks. Mm-hmm. That does happen as well as we're on our journey. Not everything is so strategic and calculated that we'll be doing. So there's those times. And then there's times where we absolutely are just doing dumb stuff. And that's where we got to slap our own hand. But all of that is going to come back to us being able to recognize the intentionality of our actions and why we were doing things or why we were attempting to do things in the first place. And so accountability says, I recognize that I am intentional, that I do have outcomes that I am personally responsible for, and that there will be times where others may not like it or accept what outcome happens. It doesn't always work out, but at least we're taking the ownership of our actions and our interactions with people as we go on along our journey. So that's that first part for me, is that accountability piece.
I like that. So with that intentionality, because you're another piece, and by the way, Brian Senior says liable was the number 2 from your list.
Oh, yeah, we are liable. So you're right, but we ain't gonna go into that because we don't incriminate ourselves. This is not that channel.
So then question on the permission aspect, because
yes,
if we're intentional with our actions, does that permission come before the actual accountability? Or is it the permission to give yourself that self-forgiveness that you're referring to?
Absolutely. So forgiveness is going to be a liquid and ongoing process for all of us. It's something that we have to refresh, like you call it grace. I'll say forgiveness or permission. It's something to where even though Cousin Ro is feeling like the locus of his control is within him, there's things that you can accomplish in this world. That doesn't stop the obstacles from being there too. So you want to start a business, they still going to ask for that $125 to file that license or whatnot. And you're going to have to come up with that money. Something more important than just the business when it comes to marketing, we're going to have to decide which channels, which avenues, or particularly YouTube, which spaces do we want our message to go into as we try to build out even that type of a platform. So in any of these small areas, that was just a couple of examples of business, but in life in general, we have to give ourselves permission to go against the competition. And that competition in many senses starts within ourselves. That own voice, I guess, that, or the excuses, procrastination. What if I fail? Oh, well, I don't have a lot of money. Oh, that's going to be hard. The barriers to entry to success are always going to be there. There will always be barriers to entry to success. But we have to give ourselves that permission to say, look, I'm just going to try it. Maybe it's a pilot. Maybe I'm going to give it a 3-month, a 6-month. Maybe I'm going to go all in. Maybe I can't go all in. I can only go 25%, but I'm going to make it the best 25% that I can devote to it. But we have to give ourselves permission to either try, and with the knowledge, or with the cognizant that we're going up against a competing force, and with the actuality that sometimes it might not work out.
Yeah, no, sometimes it may not work out, or sometimes it may work out and it was like, oh, that's not what I thought the result was going to be.
Absolutely. Didn't see it going that way, but that's
Right.
it.
All right. So this kind of is a good segue for me for the next question that I want to ask you. So for yourself, what begins the process of self-forgiveness in yourself? Like, how do you get to that permission phase of forgiving yourself?
Oh, yes. So it could come with trauma. It could come with more responsibility. It could come with, any of those major paradigm shifts in our life that cause us to become even more reflective or introspective. And at those points of, crises almost, we can determine for ourselves whether we want to stay inside of that space. I've heard many testimonies about being in a dark space in their time. And then when you see them, they're clean cut. They're back at it again. Their hustle is restored. Their energy levels are back vibrant. And it's just like, what happened? And then they'll tell you that, you know what, I had to really look at myself and sit myself down. And I think that was the resounding message that happened in many lives, including my own, was going through something that was so serious, so severe, that it caused me to sit myself down. And from that point, forgiveness was one of the things that was humdrummed into my heart, that Moses, what are you doing expecting perfection as if Christ himself? Now, you can expect to aspire towards greatness because you've had a ton of mentors who told you, do not sell yourself as mediocre. You've had a ton of family members who prayed for you and invested in you early on. You have all the components of a support system to thrive here in America. And even with all of that, we're going to need you to determine that you want to do something bigger than what you've been doing. And in order to do something bigger, you're gonna have to recognize that some of those challenges, like, hey, when you're getting big like this, cousin bro, I want to finish that thought, but I got to throw in my analogy first. When you're getting big like you getting big, that comes with some push-ups and some sit-ups and some discipline, some nutrition, some different lifestyle choices that you got to make, right? On what you take into your body, the time that you spend committed to either working out in a gym or just walking even. And these are the different decisions that have to make. So to round off that point, when you're looking towards a goal or an outcome, you're going to have to make yourself uncomfortable.
No, I'm with that. So really the beginning of that process comes with discomfort, which is interesting because I guess I've always looked at self-forgiveness as this soft space. Like, it's a space where you're giving some, like I said, grace. I'm going to continue to probably use that word tonight, but giving yourself some grace and some room for growth and room to not be that perfect human that you were trying to be. It's like, no, I'm going to give myself some room to say, hey, I may make a valiant effort. I may make the best effort I can make, and I might fall completely short of it. And being able to sit down and say, okay, well, why did I fall short, and have that reflection will allow me to kind of get in that space of, okay, self-forgiveness for, sometimes you got to forgive yourself for the, well, I procrastinated. All right. So do you want to spend the next 30 days beating yourself up over the fact that you procrastinated? Or do you want to say, you know what? I procrastinated. I'm going to be accountable to that, but here's what I'm going to do to move forward in the space. And part of that, I think part of that moving forward has to be some kind of self-forgiveness component. One of the other things that you said a little bit earlier was that it's a liquid and it's an ongoing process. That is, I think that is one of the caveats, because sometimes, from this perspective of forgiving other people versus forgiving yourself, when you think of forgiving somebody else, it's like, okay, well, if you punch me in the face and I'm like, I forgive you, then you're probably not going to have any deterrent if you feel like punching me in the face the next time. However, with ourselves, there are consequences that come even when we give ourselves, self-forgiveness. There's consequences that may come that we still have to deal with. So like you said, that resistance to success, those obstacles to success, sometimes we'll put ourselves in a position where, okay, I can forgive myself for what I did, but it set me back a little bit further. So now I got to cover that much more ground to get to success. So I like that you say it's a liquid and it's an ongoing process. Because I truly feel that it is that it's a process that we're going to continue to engage with in different areas and different aspects of our lives. So let's move on to the next question. The chat is really quiet today. I forgot to tell you guys, you'll see Cousin Moses and I talking, but you guys are welcome to jump in. If you have questions or comments that you want to bring to the table, please feel free and I'll bring those into the live chat. So the next question I want to ask you is, in your opinion, why do you think that self-forgiveness is so difficult for many people?
I think you brought it out too, right? So if you've experienced some failures, some setbacks, some stalls, some procrastination, some distractions, a host of different things that happen when you're trying to accomplish something, it can be demoralizing. It can sap the confidence out of you. It can sap the self-efficacy out of you. Efficacy. There's just some words that I know, and I know them. I can break them down. I can even spell them, but tell me to say them. Self-efficacy, efficacy. It's one of those ones, but it's I believe in myself. I believe I can accomplish a thing. Sometimes that's gone. So let's give some examples that really resonate with folks. They may apply for a job at McDonald's, but they won't do the manager's role coming straight in. Why? Because there's something in them that says, well, if I have to deal with people, then I may not be as capable. I probably could run the cash register. So why are they selling themselves short when they probably do have these skills? It's probably due to some experience that they had in dealing with somebody where it became a conflict, and they still haven't forgiven themselves for how they poorly managed that relationship. And so now they're holding themselves back on income and other opportunities and growth areas. School is another one. Well, I wasn't the best person in high school, and I didn't understand, and I didn't learn a lot. I avoided it. And so now they're in their 30s and still won't go to Sacramento City College or American River College to take courses that they are absolutely interested in, that they have nothing but time for, and that it's right there on the way. They're like, yeah, I've always wanted to just stop in and take a XYZ course just for whatever, photography or something like that. Probably spend $175 to enroll or whatever, and probably $1,000 at most for the books and the camera. And now they're able to apply something they really like, which is taking photos into their everyday life, just to improve the quality of life, not to further their income, not because they want to do weddings and things like that, just because they were absolutely intrigued by photography, but they won't do it. Why? Because I wasn't good in high school. So there's still that forgiveness barrier to overcome but I did mess up, and then having to own that. And then, so what's next?
Right. How do you move forward? So, that's interesting. Because I understand the experience, having that experience. So let's use high school. So I wasn't a great student in high school. So learning new things may be a challenge, and not forgiving myself for that. But where do you think that critical nature comes from? Like, where is the origin point of that critical nature that we have? Like, say, you're your own worst critic. Where do you believe that comes from?
So it's always two or three major ones. So the media, what we've consumed and what we've put into our thoughts. If we haven't seen a lot of, the educated Black, or the, on television, the happy husband, happy wife type dynamic, then what are we looking at? And if that is a lot of single folks living vicariously through, their younger years, then that might be what we tend to gravitate towards in our thinking, not in our actions. We may not want to become the super thug and put on the red bandanas, but we will still harbor those type of thoughts that is all right to just stay there. The inverse relationship, right, to having that positive reinforcements is, how do I become that? So the
Right.
inverse relationship is, how do I become that? Like they're thinking their relationships are good. Listen how they're speaking to one another. Are they screaming? Are they in softer tones? Are they using an articulate vocabulary, an expansive vocabulary? Or are they very short? Are they quick to anger? Or are they slow to anger? What are the role models or the images that we've been able to see and consume? So that would be number one, is the media. What have you actually consumed from information wise? And then the second one is, even before media, we had our family, which is a form of media in my position, or in my perspective,
Absolutely.
that's what we've had, whether it was the cousins or the uncles that we did admire, the aunts and our parents, really, the brothers or siblings, and best friends who were there that were accepted as family. If they don't see a lot of folks who are thriving and striving and overcoming, then it's easy to fall into the trap of being complacent or being all right, and not developing that critical bone that says, well, what am I doing? Not creating that confidence bone that says I can, and then not creating that bone that says I should.
No, I like that. Bruce says, I want to bring something from the chat. Bruce says, for me, self-forgiveness is like laptop updates. I'll get to it later type feeling.
Facts. I mean, next.
We are programmed. The reprogramming is hard. Absolutely. But because I know Bruce understands this, because I've seen a post of this from your page the other day, Bruce, where you can put off that update. You can put off that update. But at some point, your computer is going to say, don't worry, I'm going to just push this update for you. And it's going to be at an inopportune time. So that's when you have, those, we're going to call them those snags in life, where you have these emotional breakdowns, or you might, have a falling out with somebody that you've been cool with your entire life, or you might have fallen out with your parents. Like, all kinds of things may come in that, but it's because of the fact that you've pushed off that update. You've pushed off that time of forgiving yourself, which in essence probably is going to put off time that you're actually going to take to forgive other people as well. Like, if you look at the queue of forgiveness, we think that it's easier to forgive other people, but I think the queue goes self, then others. So if you can't get yourself forgiveness in order, you're going to really struggle when it comes to forgiving others. You might be like, yeah, that's cool, no problem, I forgive you, it's good. But you're going to still be holding on to that. And it's going to just take one right argument or one update clash between the self-forgiveness that you didn't give yourself before you jump bad at somebody. Like, well, you're the one who did. Oh, so you didn't really forgive me, probably because you didn't have the proper channels in the queue. So I think that's a good add to the conversation. I want to move on to the next question with you, Cousin Mo, because I think for I'm going to say, I think for people like you and I, one of the struggles that can come from self-forgiveness is being concerned that we are excusing inappropriate behaviors, being concerned that we have moved from like this self-forgiving to just like creating excuses. Oh, well, I'm gonna make mistakes. Yeah, but you didn't have to make that one.
I'm a Scorpio.
Larry, and I'm a Cancer. So for you, where do you establish the line between forgiving yourself and actually just simply making excuses for your actions?
Yeah, so that one's kind of hard. I blur that line all the time. I am acceptance and tolerant of behaviors that far exceed my traditional Christian upbringing. So gays, transgenders, things like that, I have no problem with them anymore. I used to be that hardliner, or I thought I was anyway, just based off of what I thought the Bible meant. And, oh no, you're going to hell. And I had to tell them, I had to go and create a hell just for them, just so that I could send other people to. I don't know. I was kind of skewed, but for me, I've struggled with a lot of things in my life. Failures, setbacks, forks in the road, from the military and losing my career there, to things that I thought was of no fault of my own, but lo and behold, I did have some accountability there, and I had to realize that over time. Struggles with mental health, struggles with not finding a good job, struggles in the relationship with my wife, and all of those, Cousin Ro, came with expectations. When you are a soldier, you're expected to soldier. And then when you lose that, it's like, well, what am I going to do now? When you are moving from career to career, it's like, well, why am I not making much money? You're expected to perform at a leadership or at a potential level. And when you're not, you can kind of beat yourself up. I beat myself up. In relationship wise, the expectation is that a husband is supposed to follow A, B, and C with perfection, no sans any excuses. And it's easy to accept, well, oh yeah, I got that wrong, and I'm probably going to continue to get it wrong, rather than just say, you know what, this is something that was beyond my scope or as an expectation in the first place. So let me answer more directly. I struggle with that fine line because there are some things that I want to pull from the other side, things that probably shouldn't be happening, that because I'm tolerant of a whole bunch, I feel like my grace should extend towards a whole bunch of other type of activities as well. And so
Right.
I'm guilty as charged. And I admit that. Even on this point, my accountability of what I define myself to be accountable for and the outcomes that I want to create in my life, they blur the line.
You know, it's funny.
And I accept that.
And I accept that wholeheartedly.
And I accept that.
It's funny because that accountability plays a big role in what we are willing to accept, because do you ever feel like we may accept like a partial accountability for something, like, I'm trying to think of, okay, for me, sweets. I love sweets. Like, I worked at a candy store, I've been hooked ever since. But this week I'm not doing any real sweets. Like, I have a couple of pieces of fruits in my snacks, but I don't have any like, I can't go and grab a candy bar. It's not within my food prep regimen. So for me, when I'm not on this type of regimen where I'm supposed to be eating, where I'm eating healthy and I'm dedicated to eating healthy, it's easy for me to say, okay, well, I'm hungry, I'm just going to put this, Hostess apple pie in my mouth, or I'm going to put this Starburst in my mouth, or I'm going to put this Cinnabon in my mouth. It's really easy. But then I want to only have partial accountability to that, where, you hear people be like, oh, it's cool, I'm working off when I go to the gym.
Absolutely.
Gym anyway. So that establishing that line, I think it's easy to blur, because of the fact that we take these half acceptance. Well, I'm going to accept that I'm eating this right now. However, immediately after the acceptance speech, however, I'm going to be at the gym later tonight burning those calories. So it's all good. Do you ever find yourself doing that with acceptance, like, or with accountability? Like, I'm accountable to a point, but then I'm going to just fall back on, yeah, but I got some other things that counter that full accountability.
Absolutely. No discussion.
No discussion. No further questions, John.
Mine are not sweets. I have issues that surpass sweets, but yeah. But I understand that whatever we might struggle on, because there's something inside of us that says this is important to me. And then there's still that conflict that was like, yeah, but I do still have the tendencies or the habits, or I do have the cravings. I have any of those other things. So I'll give a little one. I am a full-blown alcoholic, full-blown. Like, love alcohol, the smell of it, the taste of it, cognac, brandy, whiskey, wine. I've been sober since June 6th, I believe it is, June 6th of 2018. But that does not stop me from having the same dreams, the same cravings, the same attitude. I can go to the same places I used to, and it's still right there, like basking in the ambiance. But that will always be something that's with me, even no matter what I try. So I haven't had the relapse, but it's still there, though. And I feel it and I know it. I haven't found a substitute, but I understand the struggle. So it could have gone from the alcoholism to marijuana. It didn't, thank God, or something harder, or, something along those lines. But for each their very own, what was important for me was sobriety. And there are still my struggles every day going into the different situations where it's, at work events, or even some of my after work leisure, happy hour type things. Every excuse I can make. Oh, I'm with the coworkers. If you don't have one drink at least, then you're not as friendly and as sociable. It can be looked at as odd. And then in other situations with like homeboys or whatever it is, folks that I have relationships with or acquaintances with, where drinking is involved, holidays.
Right.
And it's always there. But yeah, it's going to be with me. And so I've shared, y'all got me. Y'all got me for one personal testimony. You got me. I forgive myself though. My forgiveness is not from the actions, but because how do you say it? Just because I didn't do it didn't mean I didn't want to. So which means to me, I'm still slapping my hand as guilty. I want to get to a space where I don't even want that anymore. And if that's what's important to me, then I know that I'm still on that road.
So you want to have new cravings, basically. You want to get to a place where the alcohol is not the craving, but you have new cravings that really replace, I don't even want to say substitute, that replace the craving and the desires that you get from alcohol.
Yeah, because the bad thing, you might do something to cover up that bad thing or that mistake. Like if you hit somebody's car, it's an accident, and they what is it? All state or you're in good hands. The dude with the deep voice who's like accident forgiveness. That so they may compensate. Allstate man, they may compensate that they might be made whole again on their car. But whatever traumas that they may have experienced in that accident, there's things that they will live with for a while. You may replace the thing that went bad, but can you actually substitute it with a new positive? So I was doing a bad thing that I needed to forgive myself for. So now that I'm not doing the bad thing, what can I put in its place? Is it new ambition? Is it YouTube? Is it a business venture? Investing in something with the money that I used to spend on alcohol? I don't know yet, and I haven't figured that out yet. I think that would be a good next point for me on moving past forgiveness into real action.
Okay, I like that. Into action, forgiveness into action. Really quick, I'm going to catch us up in the chat. So Bruce says, just falling back to an earlier part of the conversation, and truth be told, after you forgive yourself, you feel better, run updates, and my laptop runs a lot better. So we stave off those updates. And then once we do them, the computer works a lot better. Now, I will say there are some times where you feel like it doesn't work a lot better because you don't know how everything works, but typically it works a lot better. And then he also said, thank you for your transparency, Brother Mo.
Appreciate you, Kyle.
So with that, I do want to move. Actually, I want to ask something a little bit deeper on this line between forgiving and excuses.
Yes, sir.
For you, do you feel like? Because let me be a little transparent. I've had to self-forgive myself a lot in life. Like I've made some horrible decisions in life that I had to work through and really find a way to forgive myself for those decisions. But can you get into a rhythm where self-forgiveness becomes toxic, like because you're so focused on that self-forgiveness that it almost desensitizes you from the types of choices that you're going to make? It's almost like, again, that guy punching you in the face. If he knows I can punch you in the face and you're going to forgive me, then if he wants to punch you in the face, bam, he's going to punch you in the face. And so it desensitizes the ability for him to say, well, if I punch Billy in the face, he's a scrapper. He's going to punch me back and we're going to have to share some mutual combat. So is there a place where we can, is there a such thing where we can be so quick with our self-forgiveness that we desensitize our decision-making?
I mean, I think there is. And for some, I believe that it's a good thing.
Okay.
Absolutely. The expectations of the standards that have been placed on some of us were so pressing that we needed something liberating. We needed something that allowed us to break out of that shell where we were constrained. And breaking out of that shell will allow us to feel and experience and exhaust new horizons of what's really out there. And we would have never been able to do that had we not experienced what we experienced, forgave ourselves, and then come to grips with the fact that, look, I am no longer beholden to that thing that I was expecting, that I was held down by. So if you can get to that point where forgiveness just becomes a ritual, a thing, my bad is something that you have to tell yourself quite a few times, like even at work, and that wasn't my best performance. It will allow you to get to the next one. I think you told me this. Some will, some won't. So what? Who's next?
Right.
And that is like my mantra. At some times, we can be so self-critical that we are our own constraint, that we are the one who actually put us in that box. We are the ones who are actually oppressing us, or making us repress our true liberated, what we would like to accomplish self. We would like to be a little bit more bold. We would like to take a little bit more risk. We would like to be a little bit more assertive. We would like to be a little bit more not the person who gets punched in the face, but the person who has that intimidating look, like, you bet not try it. But instead of us actually moving to that position, all we do is just, well, I'm just going to forgive them. Or now I forgive myself for allowing him to punch me, but then not making that forgiveness actionable. So it just becomes that cold, callous things where now it's not just that person punching you, but now you just have a very punchable face. And everybody's able to just punch you because you didn't take the forgiveness actions afterwards. Afterwards, that forgiveness is supposed to be empowering.
I like that. You know, as you were talking about, like, well, all of that, as you're talking about all of that, that oppression aspect, we're going to come back to, because I think that's going to be a part of the next question. But I was thinking about, like, my experiences that I've had as well, so let's use my experiences when I was growing up. I was a young man, very interested in young ladies, and I would just talk to as many young ladies as were willing to talk to Billy Rowe. Like, Billy Rowe was open to those conversations. And I would make stupid decisions. Like, I'd be dating one girl and talk to another girl, like, to really talk to her and get to know her like we were dating. And it was like, dang, why am I making all these stupid decisions? And I wouldn't and I would just like, you know, whatever, I'm young, I'm going to make stupid mistakes, and I just move on. But where I think self-forgiveness begins to desensitize us is that between the action and self-forgiveness, if there's zero reflection, then you don't take the lesson, you don't take the wisdom that the experience is giving you to even cause for you to need to have self-forgiveness. And so it wasn't until I was, we're just going to say well into adulthood, that, unlike with you, where you're like, you know, my thing is alcohol, my thing was women. And I had to say, okay, well, what is it that I'm looking for from these women? What do I get as far as this gratification from this attention? And why am I jeopardizing the relationship that I have? Or do I not want the relationship that I have, and I'm looking for another relationship to find certain types of validation? And so once I started that reflection, then the self-forgiveness of making a bad decision, like, oh man, I really messed up there, that was a bad move, I can forgive myself to move forward. But now I hold myself forward, like you said, empowered with action. So that's why when I date, I have an algorithm that I use on, hey, is this a person that I want to be spending time with? Or is this a person that I should even be considering sleeping with? Is this a person that I should definitely not invest any more time and energy in? And that algorithm makes it very intentional for me to say, this is who I should be focusing my time on. This is who I should be focusing my energies and my efforts on. This is who I should be hanging out with. And then this is somebody who I might move to a friend role, or somebody that I might move out of any kind of relationship role.
That's powerful.
Based on that empowerment of the reflection. But it was only after I had that action choice, reflection, then self-forgiveness, that it actually created a power for me to utilize in my adult life. So I
draw something out that you said that really resonates with me even on that one?
Absolutely.
So being a player, for many senses, there's expectations that are external that tells us that we need to be with one woman at a time. And if we're talking, then it needs to always be geared towards, this is a serious relationship. But after reflection, you did understand that it was a part of you to have multiple interactions with women, not just the conversation, some that would lead to more, promising ventures if sex was the thing that you were focused on, and others. But because you were able to reflect, you were able to bring about a standard for yourself that allows you to find outcomes that you like. So you can now give them the space. Here's the liable, or the part in the middle that I didn't want to include, because we don't do that to each other on here. But the liability piece, those expectations from the external environment, they're real. there are some females who still live to those expectations and expect that they talk to you, so therefore you're only supposed to talk to them. So with your new standard, or with your standard that you've probably been using for a while in your adulthood, you've been able to give them time to understand your paradox, that you are a player, that you do have multiple relationships, and that this is a concept that might not be is common to them. And it gives them the opportunity to accept it or reject it, but it will be their decision, and therefore absolving you of any guilt or pressure you have. You have the power to say, good for a friend zone, good for, conversations, good to hang out with, but I am not trying to make this a monogamous, intimate relationship. And therefore you're able to communicate that. And that's probably going to be key, even on being the player. So I had to pull that out right there, because I know a lot of folks may struggle with, I still want multiple relationships with my coworkers, with, my neighbors, with all of them, opposite sex, but I'm married. How do I how do I balance that? How do I communicate that? And then how do I do so effectively without being liable for other people's feelings and such? So I think that's a good model that you have. I'm not recommending that everybody do it. You ain't got the model, but key takeaway was reflection. I like that.
Reflection. It's funny because even to state, I still don't consider myself a player, but I do consider myself an honest person. And that's where, for me, when it comes to dating, whether I'm dating one person, 10 people, whatever it may be, I'm very honest and upfront. And that's one of the challenges of not falling into what you said in the very beginning, that media consumption of, well, you're dating, so therefore you have to be on this realm, and it's you and him, and that's it, or her and her, or him and him, or whatever the match may be. That's all it is. It's a challenge because people are not used to, number one, you being honest and upfront about, hey, right now, relationship is not what I'm looking at. This is what I'm looking for. For me, I gotta feel like we're friends at this point. If I don't feel like we're friends and we're not moving to anything, I can sleep with anybody. I'm not saying anybody I want, I got my pick and choose, but I can honestly, you can find somebody to sleep with anywhere you're at in the world. So Absolutely. If that's the case, then I'm looking for something much more meaningful. And when you're looking for something more meaningful, because of that reflection point, you're looking for those things that are, okay, well, why am I going outside of the relationship to find the person who can cook, and the person who can have a good conversation, and the person who's good in bed, and the person who has an education, and the person who has drive, and the person who has career? When you take that time and reflection, you really can get down deep into the person that you're interacting with and say, okay, you're bringing a lot of the things that I have been driven to in the past, or that I have driven myself to in the past to seek outside of my relationships. You're bringing a lot of those things in this one package. Now, you may not have all of them. However, because of the value system that I have in place now, I now understand that I may not get all of them, but if I get somebody who's damn close, then you might want to make sure you keep investing in that maybe that relationship, maybe that friendship, whatever it may be. You keep investing in that. And then as those little distractions come up, it's like, well, I hate to break the bad news, you're at the beginning of the algorithm. So yeah, you started off with all sevens and you're average at everything until you prove otherwise. But if I got somebody in the algorithm who's like a 27, 28, I'm not going to turn around and deviate my time and attention from them to spend time with somebody who's an 11 or a 12. I'm just not. It's not going to happen. So that was
crazy too. Some of us are married too. So I think what we could take away is our responsibility to be reflective as well. When you're intimate, sometimes you're not all the way there with the person. And you're going to have to forgive yourself, because you're going to wake up in the morning and they may still have that angry face, like, well, that wasn't your best effort. And you got to know that too.
Not your best performance.
That wasn't your best performance. Expectations on cooking and cleaning have always been towards the woman. And at sometimes we might want to take advantage of that. And that's where we're cold and callous. Well, she's going to do it. And so that's another area where it's like, well, as this relationship progresses, do I want to actually contribute to their livelihood? Sometimes she might be tired and could use that helping hand. cater to me. I'm your husband. I'm the head of the household. But what does that actually mean unless you've become cold and callous and you've allowed yourself a certain privilege that you're not extending? There's a lot of reflectiveness that really needs to happen on the expectations. And I say accountability first is because what we expect of ourselves, the outcomes. And then the middle part was liable. Now, how does that impact other people? And then the permission. Once we figured out, like you said, the model that works for you, once you figured out a model or some outcomes that you would like to accomplish, you got to give yourself that authority to go ahead and invest in it, whether it is the more intimate moments where you're actually there and connected and making the best out of those experiences, or it's the appreciation that we can show, not just in the automatic everyday livings. I'm paying the bills, the lights are on. What else do you want, woman? But no, did you massage, but ask the question and listen type things, turn off the TV and such. But being intentional about even those interrelationships. So I didn't mean to refer to it as being a player, but in just the relationships that you may be cultivating and how you choose to allow those to add value in your life are similar to those who are in that one monogamous relationship. And they could also have some failures or some mistakes that they are yet to forgive themselves for, that they might want to reflect on and say, you know what? I really haven't looked at it from this lens. There's me, there's my wife, and then there's us. Those are three different individuals inside the relationship. Our relationship is a entire being. And am I respecting that relationship with the same measure of respect that I would want her to respect me? Am I respecting her with the same amount of integrity that I would like for the relationship? That triangle is gonna get huge, man. But we're gonna put the pin in it right there and give them another show later just on that.
All right.
Let's keep it going. Keep it going.
So my next question, and this is why I wanted to pinpoint our bookmark when you said oppression, because I feel like there are some damages that come. Sometimes, like you said, that liability aspect, because you're liable, there's some damages that may come because of your reckless choices, and then you move through self-forgiveness. However, However, I do believe that there are some damages that can be caused by holding on to grudges and holding on to that unforgiveness for ourselves. What are some of the damages that holding grudges against ourselves can cause, that you believe it can cause?
Long-term financial consequences, man. You hear about child support, you hear about lost job opportunities, lost wages, co-workers that you're holding grudges against that you never let go, and now they're moving up the chain of command and leadership and you're still stuck at that same role. Opportunities like that in the workspace. Health-wise, I believe that there is a chemical that actually is created with that negative stress and such. So you're taking cortisone?
Cortisol, yes, it's a stress induced chemical or hormone.
Absolutely. So where is that collected? Is it on your bones? Is it in your muscles? Is it in your liver? It's going somewhere, I promise you. In your waist, what the old folks the elders used to say, my bowels is all congested. So you're not digesting food. So financials, your relationships themselves can start to suffer. So if you've ever been in that spell where you just seemed like you were snapping at people over nothing, there was probably something that happened that damaged your fellowship when in relationships. And that bitter taste can be like a grapefruit in your mouth that lasts for a while. And in order to get rid of that, you're going to have to find something sweeter. And I believe that forgiveness, which you hear me on almost every interstation I've said, at least something links back to being forgiving and being reflective. And that is that sweet nectar that can actually move you forward from it. But if you can't recognize what it is and think back, like, what was the actual root cause of before I started becoming so snappish, then you're going to have some challenges. You can try to put band-aids on it, but you got some internal bleeding going on that has to be addressed. And so there's a lot, Cousin Ro, from the pocketbook to your internal systems and organs. You can be impacted by not being able to forgive.
I like that you say financials, because one would think that is not a place that self-forgiveness would impact. However, some people try to buy their way out of, it's just like it's like you buy a gift for, the baby, we call it the baby please gift. I messed up big time. Let me buy this baby please gift. The whole baby please don't leave me. And then you, in self-forgiveness, you mess up big time. And the person you're upset with is yourself. So then you go and try to, well, let me go and buy, this purse, or let me go and buy this suit, or let me go and buy this watch. Let me go and buy these earrings. Let me go and buy something to try to keep myself in love with myself. And I think it's interesting that I haven't heard you say this word tonight, because I would have assumed that you would have said it by now. But I think that self-forgiveness is an actual act of love. And it is an act of self-love, loving ourselves and nurturing ourselves, which is sometimes hard. And because of that media concept says, if you are focused on yourself, then you are selfish. Right. Then you're a jerk. But
you're a jerk. Don't let it fool you. You got to love yourself, man.
But you got to love yourself. And I think a certain amount of selfishness and a certain amount of selflessness kind of play hand in hand, and you need both in order to be a complete human and experience this complete human experience. So the coworkers aspect as well. I've been in environments where I've seen people move up, and I'm like, A matter of fact, I actually was having a conversation with somebody recently about a position that they didn't get. And I immediately referred back to a show that Antoine Wade of Black Heights and I did called The Game. And we were talking about basically making yourself irreplaceable in the workplace. And what I was talking about was not that we can't be replaced. Anybody can be replaced. However, the thing is that when you get passed up for opportunities, when you feel like everybody else is moving up and you're not, make them regret that. Don't sit there and be like, I'm not good enough. I'm not the one that's ever going to move up. I'm always going to be in this seat. No, make the person who passed you up, make them regret the fact that they passed you up. And I don't mean like sabotage business. Please don't go saying
backbiting and the email threads and
wiping hard drives, shutting down power grids. Don't do that.
Unplugging a headset.
But make the person who passed you up regret the decision based on what you're doing and based on the excellence that you show up with in spite of every single day. So I think coworkers, from a coworker's perspective, that is one thing I am glad when it comes to self-forgiveness. I've gone into meetings where people, I guess, they're assuming they're going to yell at me because I made a mistake. And they're like, well, why would you do this? And oh, my apologies. I did it because this is what I thought. I didn't realize that was wrong. And they're like, oh, like you could see their mind is just so disappointed because they had a whole speech they wanted to give me because I was supposed to fight that accountability. However, I'm like, I thought it was a good decision. Here's my logic. I apologize. I didn't know that I couldn't make that decision independently. Next time I'll make sure I go through the proper channel. And they're just like, oh, snap. There's no beat up mode. There's no, let me beat this confession out of you. No, I confess I made a mistake. And so, but at the same time, I'm also, just so y'all don't think I'm like, oh, he's always doing everything right. There are also times where if you're yelling at me, if we're in a work setting and you decide you want to yell at me, realize you're not the only person who can yell. And so I might do you a solid and walk away from the conversation, but I probably will stop you in the middle of your speech and say, why are you yelling? And I've had people who are looking at me like, you're not supposed to interrupt. This is the best part. No, you're going to have to lower your tone with me because where I came from, if you yelling, you must want a piece of me. And if you want a piece of me and I give it to you, we both going to be going to the hospital tonight.
So this ain't no performance critique no more, huh?
Right.
Take this little jacket.
My mouthpiece out, huh?
Let me stretch because this got serious.
So I like those areas, how you say it impacts more than just the internal climate. The depression, the anxieties that may come. It also impacts these other areas outside in the finances and in the workplace, and really almost in every area of your life. Because again, if you don't install the update, at some point the update is going to install itself, and it's going to be a bad pop off when it does.
Let me give you one more concrete evidence of the financial impact based on childhood decisions.
Okay.
I probably could have been a doctor. You see, I have an expansive vocabulary every once in a while. I may not be able to pronounce words like efficacy, but efficacy. But I do know the word and I can spell it, which is probably a good indication that I probably could have been a doctor. I remember Mr. Rouse class. And I remember going in as a freshman. I had been, straight A's, passing everything. And I told myself that Mr. Rouse's class was hard. Miss Hale's class was entertaining. Everybody was in Miss Hale's class. She would allow you to box and all of those things. And so I weaseled my way out of that biology or chemistry, whatever it was that Mr. Rouse was teaching, so that I could get my schedule changed to go get Miss Hale's class. Mm-hmm. And from that point, I never forgave myself, and I never went through with the chemistry, never went through with the harder math courses. And imagine those who have made decisions like that and never went back towards an educational or a challenging educational curriculum. Year after year, they've settled for roles just because they've always told themselves, well, I don't have that higher degree that I would need in order to qualify, really, or I won't qualify for one of those state jobs or one of those city jobs because I don't have that degree or I don't have that experience. And so they're not moving towards getting the experience, not willing to move towards getting that degree because that high school course or that teacher that they avoided, and they never said, you know what, I was a coward, or you know what, I was real distracted, or I thought I was going to be cool if I had Miss Hale's class more than Mr. Rouse's, or I was looking for the easy way out and I took it. I took the easy way out, and they've never come to that realization and just said it. And therefore, they've never been able to move into a point of reflection. What would have happened if I would have challenged myself then? Am I ready to challenge myself now? And if they could even come to a yes, now I'm ready to challenge myself. Now they can have forgiveness and action. What am I willing to do going forward to not XYZ, whatever it was that they experienced? So education, high school degree, high school wages, college degree, college wages, advanced degree, advance me my wages.
Right. I need to pay off these student loans. I need you to go ahead and advance me that.
Absolutely. Cut me that check.
Nice. All right. No, that's definitely a great ad. So I got a couple more questions. We're getting ready to start winding down. We're almost at an hour. But I have a couple more questions. For those y'all in the chat, you guys are, like I said, you guys are quiet tonight. Hello. Is that on? All right, it's on.
I gotta take the jacket off. They think I'm taking them to church. Like, y'all can talk, man. We open up, man.
It's like, Quasimodo came professional today. We gotta, sit and not say nothing. But no, you guys jump in whenever you guys feel like it. But the next question I actually want to ask you is something that I talked about earlier in the Intersation about how there's like a queue of forgiveness. And you're at the very beginning of the queue, and then the forgiveness of others is after that queue. For you, or in your thoughts, do you think that our ability to forgive ourselves is connected to our ability to forgive others, or do you feel that our ability to forgive ourselves operates independently of our ability to forgive others?
Say that one more time.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Kazuma?
I said, say that one more time.
Oh, do you feel that our ability to forgive ourselves is connected to our ability to forgive others, or do you feel that our ability to forgive ourselves, it operates independently of our ability to forgive others?
So yeah, I'm probably in line with the second one more. It's independent. It's independent, and it can exacerbate the other though. So not forgiving others or not forgiving self can exacerbate your forgiveness of self or forgiveness of others, but independent in the sense that my forgiveness and my ability to forgive myself has to be the most pressing concern. I'm gonna give everybody just a quick takeaway. My forgiveness odometer. Give yourself a scale. There are some things that happen that are on the lesser end, like I didn't do my best on. I'm in a call center environment, for example. I didn't do my best on that call. My close that's a 1. My close wasn't as strong as it could have been. That's a 2. I opened up, my purpose statement wasn't as precise, or my wording was a little bit vague. That's a 3 on forgiveness. A 4 is if I started to say things that were inflammatory or outside of compliance. A 5 is if I did say something that was out of compliance. A 6 would be not only did I say something out of compliance, I was downright lying on the call. A 7 would be I didn't even make the phone call, but I did take credit for a call, though it wasn't a call. And 8 would be, so if we start to put things in perspective a little bit and give ourselves an odometer, we're able to say anything less than a 5, I'm not going to spend more than 2 minutes dwelling over. I won't be in analysis paralysis about how do I forgive myself and I can't let this go. There's some things that automatically you can recognize and move on if you give yourself a forgiveness odometer. Now, there are some things that you know have to address that are urgent, that are more pressing. If it's liable, if it's a big impact to your finances, to your relationships or your fellowship, those things cannot go a night without being addressed. You have to say something, have to respond, have to make sure that that information is being properly conveyed and get feedback. Those are the major pressing ones. So that's your 10s, 9s, and 8s. Your 7, 6, and then right there on the 5s are those things that may not need to be addressed immediately, but they are important, so you can't just let them go. Those are the things that might add to the queue, and that if they're not addressed and they don't create a severe impact, it can fall off naturally. But some of those ones that won't fall off naturally, they are in the queue that you're going to have to visit. So that would be my tidbit, my takeaway. Give yourself a forgiveness odometer. There's some things that you just don't have to spend too much time on. Acknowledge it and move forward. Some things that you cannot let go. Don't sleep on things like anger. Don't sleep on things like, oh no, I was really to that point. Those are the things that need to be addressed in a loving and an amicable spirit, a spirit of reconciliation if it involves someone else. Now, if it's your own personal, I need to forgive myself for a thing. Procrastination. I knew I should have been focused on that. My business idea, getting my business plan together. I was on the game. I was watching the Game of Thrones. I was watching the basketball game. Things like that. Probably 3s, 4s, and 5s. Give yourself some examples of things that you've done and experienced, and try to put them on a scale and start to look at them. So I did this, I did that, I did that. Where would that fall on my forgiveness odometer? And start with yourself. There may be some things that you know that you've done to other people that you can start to add on, just to see the other forgiving others and how that spectrum looks for you. But I would more than definitely say, independent of anything that you've ever done to anybody else, start with the things that you've done with yourself first that you may not have forgiven yourself for, and even include some of those things where you were like, yeah, I did forgive myself, or I believe I've forgiven myself for X, Y, and Z. Cheating, not being honest upfront and direct when I was feeling like cheating. Things like that, whatever your advice might be or whatever your situation might be, respectfully submitted.
Hey, no, that's a dope tool. I'm gonna have to go back to the replay to write all of it down. But that is a dope tool, because I agree with you. There's some things that just aren't worth the effort. Like, I mean, from the stack ranking of priority, they're just not worth the effort. I actually have over here my procrastination funnel. It's a focus funnel, but I call it my procrastination funnel. There are certain things that I'll move through that, and I'll say, do I want to concentrate on that right now, or do I want to procrastinate on purpose? And sometimes I'll say, I need to procrastinate on that on purpose because it's just not worth the effort. It's not worth the energy right now. And what it's actually helped me do is change some of the things that I do, even with the first row, like how I market content. Do I need to do something that says, hey, here's the itinerary, and the time that it takes to do that? Is that worth the return? And is that something, as we have more and more shows, is that something that I can maintain? Is that something that I can keep up? So for me, it's been this process, this of like, okay, that's not worth the energy. That is worth the energy. That's not worth the focus. That is worth the focus. So when you say a forgiveness odometer, I'm trust me, that's going to be probably the next thing that's either on that piece of paper or next to it on the wall. Like, hey, what are we? Because I'm gonna tell you, every single day I go through life, there is probably something that I either need self-forgiveness for, forgiveness from others for, or whatever it may be. However, we just gonna focus on self-forgiveness. I think that odometer will help me say, do I really need to spend additional time reflecting on this to get to the root of it, so that I can, create a tool like, an algorithm for how I want to focus my time and my attention? Or is this something that is, hey, so Billy, you didn't create this particular piece of content today and you watched the Warriors game. Okay, it's okay. You watched the Warriors game. Moving on. Let's go. Content time. Because the time that I'm going to spend reflecting, well, why did I watch the Warrior game? Well, that's time that you could be creating the content that you didn't create while you were watching the Warriors game. So I definitely feel that. You actually answered my second to last question, which was, how can we work to improve self-forgiveness? I don't think there's anything you can add to that, but if you do have something to add to that, What would you add to that?
Man, so just like you, I have my own list going in the back of my head, but I actually need to write it out. That way I can see it and I know what my measuring stick is. So if mine is going to be one area that I would like to see development in is my relationship with my wife. And so list out those things that are specifically pertaining to that relationship. So didn't acknowledge her hair. One, didn't say she looks good in those jeans. Two, because that's about weight and they are a little bit sensitive, but I'm not going to be holding myself to actually actualize every time she gets a new pair of jeans or a different hairstyle. I'm going to compliment it. I'm going to acknowledge it and do all of those things. No. But those times when she does participate in like the debates that I'm interested in, and she has a perspective on, the ADOS movement, something like that, to where I've been really trying to pull teeth and get her to give me your opinion. Tell me what you think. Even if you disagree with me, let's have that conversation. And 7, what's really important? If that 5, but did she cry? All right, if she didn't cry, that's a 1 through 4.
She didn't cry.
Did she go into my bank account and take my money? Nope. Then she's forgiven. And for both ends. For me, what are the things that I would like to actually see develop? Put those on the scale. What is a 10 in priority? If I do this, it needs to be acknowledged without a doubt on the spot. I don't care if she's at work. I need to call her. If it's a 9, maybe not as immediate as right now, but sometime today, I need to either apologize or I need to at least get it in the air and see how it actually impacted her. If it's on a level of I said something or did something. But for me, as a man, I want that on my column though, because it's important to me to have a good fellowship with my wife. And the other is, now, how did my wife feel about it? Did I do something to really, piss her off? All of those things, and putting it on there. But for me, I did not acknowledge her something under the list. Moving up, I did acknowledge, that's an action or an accountability piece for me. And then the real desires, I did this, like intimate, all those other ones. I ain't gonna tell you what my 10s is. They might be different from y'all. But my intimate 10s might be different than your intimate 10s. I'll say that.
Right.
We're gonna put the 10 right there.
All right. Well, for those who are watching live right now, I want to give you guys an opportunity to start typing if there is a takeaway from tonight's Intersation that really resonated with you. Feel free to put that into the live chat. I'm always interested in hearing what people are taking away from these Intersations. So if you have a takeaway that you got from tonight's Intersation, please feel free to place that into the chat. If you're watching via the replay, feel free to put that into the comments. But Cousin Mo, we're at our last question. We always open with the same question, end with the same question. For our viewers tonight watching live, or those who may be watching via the replay, if there were 2 or 3 takeaways that you would want them to take away tonight on tonight's Intersation on self-forgiveness, what would those be?
Just like a good song, I put them in the beginning, I intertwine them throughout the message, and then I close with them. Number 1, it's still going to be about accountability with me. Accountability. The first things first, what do you really wish to accomplish? What outcomes are you looking for in life? Set those as a priority. Number 2, liability. I wasn't going to go into it, but my guy Brian in the chat said it was reliability or liability. There are expectations that come from the world and other people would like to see you live up to. And with those expectations, you're going to give yourself a measuring stick. We do measure ourselves by our ability to perform up to other people's standards. It's common, it's human, which makes number 3 even more significant. Permission. We are not seeking perfection. We are seeking performance. We want to continue to provide ourselves the grace to achieve that level of success that we can find ourselves happy with and satisfied with in life.
Cousin Mo, man, I always like having you on these Intersations. You be killing it. And somebody back there getting in trouble because, mama got to raise a voice. Woo!
Oh, yeah, that's all day with that one. So I got nephews, though. So I love my nephews, but sometimes they be cutting up and mama's got to come in and correct that. They're like, hey, wherever they cut up at is where you cut up at, right there on the
Right.
spot.
I got a self-forgiveness belt. It's gonna help you forgive yourself.
Oh yeah, I forgive you. All right, I'm gonna go on mute so I can listen to the tools.
All right, all right. Well, thank you, Cousin Mo, as always, for you to be on. I always appreciate having you on. And for those who are either new to the first row or for those who are regulars on the first row, as you know, with every Intersation, I like to bring what I call tools for the first row. The first row is a network that is really focused on growth and inspiring people to be the best possible version of themselves that they can be. And where I got this name, the first row, actually is a play on my last name, W-R-O-E, row. However, when I was younger, I had a business mentor, and that business mentor taught me that the people who sit on the first row, they make the most money and they get the most information because there's no distraction between them and the person providing that information. So tonight you're on the first row, and as such, being on the first row, with every Intersation, I like to give you tools for the first row. Since you're here rocking with us, we want to give you a couple additional tools. These are tools and ideas that I kind of thought about as I was creating the content for tonight's Intersation on self-forgiveness, and how I've kind of interacted with it through my life and where I believe I'm at with it today. But you sometimes never know until you get to the next point of forgiveness, depending on how great that may be. So I have tonight for you, I believe, 4 tools I have for you tonight. 1, 2, skip a few, 99, 4. Yes, I got 4 tools for you tonight when it comes to self-forgiveness. So if you got a pen or if you got to watch the replay, these are some tools that I think will help you. Then they've helped me when it comes to self-forgiveness. So the very first tool when it comes to self-forgiveness for me is you can forgive yourself and retain the lesson. Sometimes, again, I feel like when it comes to self-reflection, we hold on to the grudge because we feel like in the grudge is the information of the lesson that we're supposed to retain. However, you can actually let go of that grudge and still keep the information that you want to retain. It's not the same as if you had, like, muddy water. It's really hard to separate muddy water. However, it's more like air. It's everywhere. So you can take that air with you everywhere and not have to worry about whether or not, oh, well, there's going to be pollutants in it, but you can get like a breathing mask and sort out the pollutants. You can get, I think right now you can actually buy oxygen in a can, like purified oxygen in a can. So you can separate that pollutant out of the air that's around you. And just like that with self-forgiveness or with holding grudges, you can separate that grudge from the lesson. I don't want you to feel like you don't have that ability, because that's when we hold on to the grudge, not realizing the damage that the grudge is doing to us to hold on to it. And almost it does so much damage that it's almost not even worth the lesson that we're allegedly holding on to with the grudge. So that's the very first tool is you can forgive yourself and you can still retain the lesson. The second tool that I came up with is self-forgiveness may not align with forgiveness from others. And so what do I mean by that? So self-forgiveness, it may be you forgiving yourself, like that can be immediate. Or it can be like when it takes time for somebody to forgive you when you do something wrong. It may take a process. It may take rebuilding trust in yourself that you can make the right decision. So like I'll take Cousin Mo's example with dealing with like an alcoholism or any type of addiction, because you don't have to be just addicted to drugs. There's gambling, there's sex, there's pornography, there's all kinds of other things that you can be addicted to. So when you're dealing with an addiction, you might slip and you might fall. And the time that it takes you to recover to be able to say, okay, I forgive myself, it may not be this instantaneous switch. It may actually take some work. It may actually take like 4 days of depression. It may actually take a couple of months of depression that you go through because you made a bad decision or you made a mistake or you had a relapse or whatever it may be. It may take that time. So just because you're forgiving yourself, don't misconstrue that like, oh, well, when somebody says, when I say I'm sorry and they say it's okay, don't worry about it, that may be in our minds, at least, and may not really be, but in our minds that may be construed as instant forgiveness. Whereas when we make a mistake in and of ourselves, we say, oh man, my bad. and then we kind of harbor on it a little bit. And as we're trying to figure out how to forgive ourselves, and maybe we even forgive ourselves, that may also be a process that we have to go through. So again, the second tool is self-forgiveness may not align with forgiveness from others. It may not be the same way that we receive forgiveness from others. Let's go beyond that really quick. You might do something that because of that liability aspect, you might do something that somebody wants to hold you liable to, but you move yourself into a self-forgiveness mode where you're like, hey, look, I made this mistake. I'm working to do better, and I forgive myself so that I can move on and forward in action. That person may not forgive you. So it may not align in that way either, where, well, they are still holding on to the grudge about what you've already forgiven yourself for. And you got to let them process that in their own time. But don't say, okay, well, then I can't forgive myself yet because you haven't forgiven me. They may not align. So that the feelings of self-forgiveness are really, it's going back to the question I asked Cousin Mo, it's really, I think it happens in isolation. But I do think there's a cue. I think there's yourself, and then I think there's forgiveness of others. But I think it happens in isolation or operates independently of the forgiveness from others. So don't misconstrue the fact that you're self-forgiving or forgiving yourself is not necessarily aligning with somebody who's forgiving you, or it's not instant and it's not just like, okay, I'm forgiven, now I can move on and life is so much better. Realize that it may take some time and it may take a lot of work. The third tool that I came up with, and this is something that has helped me, I think, extensively when it comes to self-forgiveness, is very simple. You're a human. I'm a human. You're a human. If you're watching this, unless you're somebody's pet, you're probably a human. So because of that, realize that there will never be a time in your life that you do not need forgiveness. And that might be forgiveness from yourself or forgiveness from others. Because we are human, we are almost destined to make mistakes. I don't care what your profession is. I don't care what your sexual orientation is, what your religion is, what your political stance is. If you're in a good marriage, bad marriage, great relationship, single, does not matter. At some point in life, it may be big, because I've had some big points in life where I've needed forgiveness. It might be very small. But at some point, because of the human element in nature in each and every one of us, we are going to make a mistake, and we're going to need some kind of grace to get through that mistake. And if you can find ways to forgive yourself, people, I believe, just like Cousin Bo said, there's the person who may think eventually you just got a punchable face. I believe that people will see that, you know what, this person is not the type of person who is not thinking about the actions that they've made, and they're actually working to make better choices. So because they'll see that on you, they might actually be more apt to forgive you when they wouldn't be in other situations. So that's tool number 3, is that you are human, and it's important to remember that. And then the fourth and the final tool is don't allow unforgiveness to become a mental prison. Because for me, that is exactly what it became, a mental prison. I would spend hours, days, weeks, months, years beating myself up over decisions that I made. And the time that I'm spending beating myself up over the decisions that I made is time that I am not spending creating solutions to be better accountable, to make better decisions and have better choices and actions. So that is tool number 4. And then one of the things that will help you with that is forgiving yourself out loud. Now that sounds kind of funny, like, oh, I'm going to forgive myself out loud. But because we are visual learners, and for those who have hearing, we're audible learners as well. Because we have these senses, when you're looking in the mirror and you're saying something that you can see and you can hear, you're seeing yourself saying it. So when you go in the mirror and you're saying, you know what, yesterday was a bad day. You yelled at somebody and you allowed yourself to get out of character. That choice that you made, you probably shouldn't have allowed yourself to get to that. It's okay that you made the mistake, but let's work to be better. But I forgive you for making that mistake. When you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're sincere about that, it's a lot easier to hold yourself accountable, not just to your actions. It's a lot easier to hold yourself accountable to forgiveness, to the self-forgiveness or the forgiveness that you've given yourself. And what also happens when you don't allow that self-forgiveness to become a mental prison is even when people try to use your actions against you. And I've had this happen in a few instances in life where people have tried to bring up mistakes that I've made or bad actions that I've made, like whether it's infidelity or if it's like, oh, you should have saved this amount of money for whatever. All these people that have tried to use that against me because I have actually forgiven myself and moved forward, when they try to bring that up and say, oh, well, you did X, I say, oh, okay, well, I moved past X back at Y. So why are you bringing that up? Because if that's something you haven't let go, then that's some work that you have to do within and of yourself. But because I've done the work, that self-forgiveness within myself, I don't have that mental prison. So you can't reincarcerate me back in the mistake or the mind space that I was in, the mental space that I was in when that mistake took place. So those are the 4 tools that I wanted to share with you tonight for the first row. First one being, you can forgive yourself and retain the lesson. Don't hold on to the grudge thinking that's the only way you can hold on to the lesson. Number 2 being that self-forgiveness may not align with forgiveness from others. The timing may be different from the time you forgive yourself to the time they forgive you, or it just may not be instantaneous when you give yourself forgiveness. It may take some time to actually work through that process, just like it does with other people. And the number 3 tool is you are human. You will be human so long as you're here, I believe, unless science decides to change that up. But you're human. You're going to make mistakes. Give yourself some grace. Try not to be so hard on yourself, but be accountable to yourself. And then number 4 is don't allow unforgiveness to become a mental prison. That is just the mind, the battlefield of the mind. Protect yourself sometimes even from yourself. And if that means you're really good at beating yourself up, the picture for this one was a boxer shadow boxing, because you're really good at seeing the fight in your mind. Look, be willing to say, I'm not here to fight me today. I'm here to try to get me to be the best possible version that I can be of me. And that means I need to let this go, forgive myself so that I can move forward. So that's really all. That's it. I really want to thank you guys for rocking with us tonight. Jessica, I see you're in here. Thank you for coming in. But I thank you guys for rocking with us tonight. If you're watching via live, if you're watching via the replay, thank you for making it towards the end. For those who are looking for the next time that the first row will be live, we will actually be live tomorrow for the Wednesday Word at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Wednesday Word will be on You Can't Dole the Pain Away. Woo! Man, I'm really looking forward to that Wednesday Word. So I hope you guys come back to the first row to see that Wednesday Word, because I think it's going to be really good from what content has already been written for. So if you're looking for the next time that we'll be live, that is when we'll be live tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern or Pacific Standard, again, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But other than that, we're always happy to engage with you guys. So if you guys have a topic idea, feel free to send that topic idea to topics@firstrow.com. We will look at those topics. We've actually been getting topics, and so I appreciate for those who have been sending in topics. We are already working on creating that content to get that content up and running on the first row. But as I always say, this is not just because it has my last name, my channel. This is a network of people, and I believe that it is designed as a platform for us all to share our stories and our experiences and our wisdoms and our shortcomings. So please feel free to send a topic idea to topics@firstrow.com. And other than that, as always, if you like this video, share it. If you share this video, please like it. We're happy again to engage with you in the live chat, or we're happy to engage with you in the comments up until the first week of the content being released. But until the next time that we see you, one love, peace, and God bless.
Peace.